Right then, so now what we're going to do in Unit 7 is we're going to create a page in which the user can put in a number, so it's the score in an assignment, for example, and press submit, and it will get converted back into a grade which they can see. So if it's over 77, it'll say A1. If it's below 40, it'll say F1 or something like that. Okay. In doing this, it'll allow us to revise what we've already done in terms of validation. We did that in Unit 5. It'll also help us revise what we did in Unit 6, namely creating functions, because we're going to create a new function, and also new thing we're going to learn is how to write things called select case statements, which are basically more complicated if statements, but it's in a notation which makes it easier to understand, essentially. So let's just go through the whole business. Okay, let's add new item. I'm going to create a web form. I'm going to call it grades.aspx. Okay, and inside that page, what I'm going to be doing is, first of all, we're going to be putting in a label, which is going to prompt the user to type in their score. Okay, so drag in the label, right click on it and choose, right click on it and choose properties. Then let's change the text of the label. Let's say, type in your score, and the label ID is going to be called caption. Okay, and then we're going to add in a text box after that. So again, in the text box from the toolbox, drag it over, and this one is going to be called, oh damn, I can't remember what it is going to be called, so I'm going to have to look in the instructions, and it's called score. Okay, so there it is. So I'm going to give it its ID name of score, and then I'm going to just leave it blank there. Having created this text box, now what we can do is also click back on the label to get the associated control ID. So there's associated control, which is saying that this label relates to that control. So let's click on that thing, click on the drop down and click on score. That now then associates the text box here with the label there, which is a good accessibility thing, because it means that anybody not using a visual browser will be able to know that those instructions do relate to that text box, even though they might not be visually contiguous. Right then, so we've done that, and now the next thing to add in is the button, which is going to produce results. So we're going to put in a button there. We're going to give it the text submit, and we're also going to give its ID as being submit, or its name. So there we go with that, and then underneath that we're going to put in another label, which is the thing which is going to actually get going to appear. So let's give that the name of grade. Okay, and then we're going to make it have no text in it when it first runs. Okay, so now this is not what's in the tutorial. This is just to kind of help us, remind us to do all those things. So let's click the play, and let's just type in actually, there's no point in me typing in a number because I haven't put in any code at all. So anyway, this will just check that really that the thing is. So I put in 77. Absolutely nothing will happen, of course, because I haven't put any script in for the submit button. So close that back down. Now let's go back into Visual Studio, and in the submit button, let's go into the oh dear. Yes, I haven't. This is the one thing you ought to bear in mind. Once you go back into editing, you need to kind of stop the web server, essentially the kind of temporary web server that is associated with Visual Studio. We need to stop it running, and in the process I've accidentally deleted my button, so I'm going to have to put it back in again and give it its name submit and its text as being submit. Okay, and now having done that, now I can press return, and I can now get in the submit click, I can put in some code. So if, no, it's called grade, isn't it, our text box? No, it's not, it's called score. If score dot text, but remember we have to turn it into an integer, so let's make it if cint score dot text is greater than 50, then grade dot text equals good, else grade dot text equals bad. And then we say end if, and having done that, now that we've done that, we'll get some interactivity again, but I haven't added the validation yet, so it won't be good interactivity yet. So, but it will allow us hopefully to give us something like, if I type in 88, that will tell me hopefully that it's good, and if I type in 33, that will say bad, and if I type in Gordon Brown, that will cause an error almost certainly, and indeed it does. So therefore, that's what we've got to protect ourselves against, which is what we successfully did in Unit 5. We've got to do it again now. So let's go into the grades things, and what we're going to do is now add our validators. So if we go down in the toolbox, okay, and we click on validation, what we need to add is a required field validator and a range validator. So these two things are not actually visible most of the time, so it doesn't matter too much where they go. So let's just type, there's our required field validator, and here's is our range validator. Now then, in the required field validate, then we're just going to make sure that the control to validate, make sure somebody's put in something into the control to validate is score. Okay, so we put in score. Okay, and that will do that. Now then, the range validator. Now we've got to make sure that what is inside the score box is an integer, and that it is between 0 and 100. So let's, in the range validator, then let's first of all, let's say the type is going to be an integer, okay, and the minimum is going to be 0 and the maximum is going to be 100, okay. And of course we've got to mention the control to validate is of course the score. Okay, so we've got all that sorted now, so that's all that done. So now then, that would tell us, for example, if I now it won't actually, well, that gives in the error message, but I still need to add now some code into the submit button in order to check, because what those two controls will do now is create this kind of state, this property of the page, either is valid or being true, or is valid being false. If those conditions are not satisfied on a post back, then the page will have those two states. Okay, so what we can say then, if page dot is valid, then we run the rest of our code. Okay, so let's move that out, and then we put then the end if before the end sub, end if. Okay, so then we've got there. So if the page is valid, then do this, and okay, and then this. So this is the same stuff. So we've just produced their interaction. Now let's see if this validation is working. So we just wait for the page to come up as usual. I type in the score 66. Does that work? Yes, it does. Now, does Gordon Brown produce the error message that we desire? It's produced some sort of thing. It says range validator, and the reason is, so that's not very good, is it? Because I didn't put in any a proper valid error message. So I have to go back into my grades.aspx page, click on the and also stop thing compiling. Okay, click on the range validator and change the error message to something like we require an integer between 0 and 100. Okay, so that's what will appear now in the case that that the user puts in the wrong thing. Also, let's just drag this a little bit wider, and click on the error message. Enable client script. Make that false as the thing. It just means that it will be done at the server, the validation, rather than in the client using JavaScript. So let's now do that, and let's kind of start debugging again. So running this, we get our page to appear again, and again typing in the score. If I type in KT Price and I click submit, it says we require an integer between 0 and 100. So that's all working fine now. So we've got to that stage now. The final part is, instead of just saying good and bad, 50, everything above 50 is good and everything below is bad, what we need is to actually check that is it between certain ranges, and then we give a score based on where it is. Okay, and for that we use the select case statement, and we're going to do that inside a function as well. So let's go into the code again. Okay, now, so let's create a function. We're going to create a function, and to create a function in Visual Basic, again, when I failed to actually stop the whole thing before doing it. To create a function in Visual Basic, you just write something like this. You can have this public, protected, or private function. In this case, it might as well be a private function because it's on the page. It's not another page which is calling it. So let's say private function. I can't remember what it said in the tutorial. Let me just go back to the tutorial so I'm not writing any sort of funny stuff. Function is getGrade. Okay, actually, so let's just say function. Let's not say if it's private or public. Function getGrade. Okay, now then here we're putting in a parameter. So this function is going to take in a parameter being an integer, and it's going to return a value based on what is input to it. So we say getGrade. Most of the time you'll always write by val. I mean, when you get into more advanced, but quite advanced programming, you might put by ref, but you must always put by val for now. By val, and it's going to be an integer. Okay, so it's by val the name of a variable as integer. So let me look at what is by val I as integer is what we've got in the notes. So by val I as integer. Okay, press return. Okay, and I'll put end function at the end there so that we can go along without any problems. Okay, so function getGrade by val I as integer, and here. So now let's. So what we would do now is return a letter and a value based on the number. Okay, now typically we've shown you before how to do if and end if. This time we're going to have loads of different bound little grade ranges. Okay, you know, from 77 to 78, sorry, from 77 to 80, from 73 to 77, from 70 to 72. Okay, so what we do is we use the case statement in this particular eventuality. So select case I. Okay, and then underneath, so like you can then type in things like case something like say for example 77 to 80, and we can type in something like that return, or I didn't. Let me just check that I'm using the right syntax. No, we don't. We actually write in. We create another variable g. We have another variable g as string. Dim g as string. This is a notation Visual Basic uses for declaring variables. Dimension meaning declare, g as string, dim g as string. Select case 77 to 80. G equals a1. Okay. Then case, say for example 73 to 76, G equals a2, and then something like that, case 70 to 72, G equals a3. Okay, then we say something like that, end select. And at the end of that, we can always say return G. Okay. So this is a function. We created a function which will we created a function which will take in a value and return a string based on the value that is input. Okay. And now what we're going to do is replace what we put in the button with the function. We're going to say we're going to create a new variable, so dim result, or dim result as string. Actually, no. Let me just check with the tutorial actually how they've done it here, because okay, submit. Okay, strugrade. Okay, so dim strugrade as string. Okay. Strugrade equals get grade, and then inside the function we say cint open bracket score dot text. Actually, we probably would be better to actually create another variable. I think that's what's happened here. Yes, it is. That's the way the tutorial has done it. So it creates another variable called int score. Int score is the number which has been changed to an int. Okay, from the text box, and then we pass that into get grade. So let's go through this. So if the page is valid, meaning if the user has correctly put in a number between 0 and 100 into the text box, then turn that text in the text box into an integer. Pass that integer to the getGrade function, okay, which is here. The getGrade function takes that integer, checks it against its numbers, and when it finds the right number, okay, there's A1. Okay, so if it finds it's 78, case 77 to 80, it is therefore in that case g equals A1, and then at the end of the function it returns that value A1. Supposing, however, somebody put in 71, then what would happen is kind of like the 71 inside the text box again goes into the int score variable. The int score variable is passed to the getGrade function. The getGrade function takes that variable and looks through its kind of list of possible ranges, and in the case of 71 it says, aha, that satisfies this case, therefore g equals A3, and that comes out of the case statement and then returns the g, which goes back from here. getGrade goes into strgrade. Okay, so that strgrade now has something either A1, A2, A3, and we can then put the strgrade into the grade label. So we say grade.text, okay, which equals strgrade. Okay, so that's hopefully working. Let us check. Okay, there were build errors. Let's say let's see there's something wrong here then. Right. Okay, so I think yes, int score has not been declared. So let's say dim int score as integer. Okay, so that should hopefully get rid of that problem. Okay, so let's try it again. Okay, it seems to be working. So now type in your score, say 78, submit. A1, excellent. 75, submit. A2, and 71, submit. A3. So there it is. Now, I suppose, I don't really need to, to copy out all the rest of it, although I think what for now I'll do is I'll just copy it from the tutorial rather than putting in all of that myself handwritten. So let's do this. Let's just select all of that. Case 77 that goes all the way, and then just put that into our own code. Okay, here it is. So let's kind of take all of that, and oh dear, no, I can't paste it because again I have to stop it from running before I can do that. Then I can select that and also end select, or if I put return G again, because I've accidentally overwritten that, and I think I probably did something wrong at the start as well. Yes, I didn't actually write the select case I. Okay, so then that should all be now hunky-dory, and we should now have the whole thing working. And let's just type in number 51 and gives us C3 as we would expect. Okay, so that's essentially Unit 7 done, and so I hope that kind of gives you some idea of how to write case statements. The reason for using case statements is because it makes it easier to read for complex conditional statements. So if there are many possible consequences depending on different ranges of values being input by the user, if you had to write in if, else if, else if, else if, else if, it would look ugly, and it wouldn't be as easy to read as if you write select case integer and then case so and so so and so, case so and so so and so. Is a much more easily comprehensible notation. Okay, so that's Unit 7 done, and we'll get on to Unit 8 shortly.